guys, so finally it works. And yeah, I'm happy that I can make this small lecture for the community, so thank you for attending. So yeah, I'm Vasily, I'm from Protocol, I'm kind of research, and one of my contributions to the token engineering space is digital asset value capturing theory. So yeah, we have an upcoming paper, and we need to look at the last slide, so there is a lot of material devoted to purely demand-side of economics and value capturing for digital assets. So the problem is that there are a lot of classification frameworks for tokens, but they are mainly focused on the legal, on some taxation, on token distribution, how tokens were sold, how all this investment process was structured, but they barely focus on what is the actual functions of the token, what is the fundamental value of the token. So and they try to solve this problem first of all, and to deliver some kind of a solid framework that you can use to decompose current assets that are already on the market, or creating new tokens with programmable utility to understand how they will work, to just make correct economic systems that will work. So, and I hope it is good attempt for that. So let's discuss what was done. So first of all, we need to focus on decentralized networks as a value network. So for classical firms, the value is produced, for example, by processing physical goods. So for example, you have a wood, you cut the wood, you make the table, you solve the table. So the table is much more expensive than the wood, of course. So and all this additional value that was created is a value creation chain. So later on, economists find out that not only physical goods can create some value, but also digital goods, some information consulting services, and all this kind of stuff. So it was a shops, and also during the dot-com bubble, people start to understand that the website can create a lot of value. So this information exchange and facilitation is also quite valuable. So and slowly but surely, people finally understood that the networks are quite valuable, and at this moment we will see the markets, the influence on the society, that main values in some kind of value networks, and decentralized networks and protocols are ultimate form of these value networks, talking from the economic perspective. So, and the value is produced based on the agent coordination. So, but the question is how token is integrated, what's the role of the system, what's the value of this token? Because, for example, if you will look back in 2010, there was a BitTorrent network. I mean, just a peer-to-peer network for file sharing without any kind of tokens or publicly trading equities. They have 1 billion of users. So the value that was created in BitTorrent was quite different. I think it's no doubt. I think everybody at least once in life used the BitTorrent network for getting some value, files, music, maybe something else. So, but there was no token, no digital asset that can capture the value that was produced in the network. So what I try to answer, how value is captured, what the problem is solved by the token, how can we classify all the analogies in all this token creation and tokens value capturing, because there are a lot of projects in the space. At the same time, the token designs are quite limited. So we will dig a little bit there, basically 10 main value capturing mechanisms that are really used. Yeah, so the general considerations for the theory are that if you want to understand value capturing, we need to understand, okay, I have a token, what I can do, what value can I derive from this token by using its utility as should be used in the protocol. I'm not talking about that I can sell to the higher price in the future. It's not about this speculative market value. So to get this done, we need to separate this origins of value. So to put them aside from each other to understand, okay, this is, for example, the cash flow, this is governance value, this is something else. So to see the whole picture there. So when we understood all the origins of value, we need to understand how they're combined, what are the combinations, how it works, because different combinations can work differently, right? It's like a chemical mixture, different ingredients, different results. So, and after that, we need to understand how these value capturing mechanisms are combined into the token model, because there can be different value capturing mechanisms in one token. So, but before we will start to making this decomposition, understanding the value drivers, we need to understand the value in general. So, what's the value? Value can be presented as the optimizational task of this kind. So, what does it mean? You have a Q and you have a Q. So, Q is like a positive part and L is a negative part. What means that if you own a token in current conditions, so you have some amount of tokens, you own them for some time. There is some state of another holders. For example, when there's some price of the token, of course, in some cases it's important you can derive some utility during this time that, right? But at the same time, while you owning a token and using it for the purpose that is designed by the protocol designers, you also have some risks and costs and liabilities. For example, the Ethereum, right? So if you own Ethereum, what you can do with Ethereum, you can pay the gas fees in the network and use the network for your own reasons, or you can set up a validator node, stake your Ethereum into validator node, and participate in the block production, receiving some block rewards, tips, and MIV income, if you know how to do it. But at the same time, what you need to run a node. You need to have hardware, you need to invest in this hardware, you need to also supply electricity, internet connection. This is a conditional action that you need to do. So you cannot run Ethereum validator without having a hardware and internet connection and power supply. Of course, you can rent a server, so in this regard, you need to rent a server. So at the same time, you have risk to be slashed in case of misbehavior of your validator, right? So it's your risk, so you can lose part of your Ethereum stake. So it means that when people consider Ethereum as a yield-bearing asset, they need to focus not only on the yield, but also on the risks and costs of running a node. For example, the liquid staking approaches, they abstract this complexity from the users, of course providing another risk of the smart contracts and the protocol itself, but anyway. So the value is positive part minus the negative part. It's quite important in the whole theory. So here are definitions for three main things in the theory. So first is original value, it's elementary economic pattern based on the system policy applied for a token. So, and it reflects the coordination. For example, you have a token, one token is 1 volt, so the only rule in the network is that one token is 1 volt and you can just set anything you want. What does it mean? It means that this policy that is applied to a token provides the governance layer, right? So you can coordinate as agents and make some decision making, and you as an agent that holds some voting power, you can influence this decision making, which provides a different outcome of the voting, provide different value to you as a whole, and to the protocol in general as a protocol. So the value capture mechanism is an economic mechanism or the composition of origins of value. It means that original value is like a GR, like a standalone GR that is not connected to anything. The value capture mechanism is several GRs. So you combine them, and the way you combine them reflects in a utility or some functions that are attributed to this mechanism. And the third definition is value capturing implementation pattern. It's a code implementation of the value capturing mechanism. So what does it mean? It's something really working. It's not a theoretical example. It's, for example, if you have two gears and the bike chain, it's a bicycle, right? So this is a particular working product that people use every day, and this is a implementation of the value capturing mechanism. I mean, just a mechanical example for everybody understanding. So the theory has three layers: original of value, which are like the foundations, like elementary particles in physics. We have value capture mechanisms, and we have implementation patterns. And these are the three levels of abstraction or three levels of hierarchy in the theory. So returning to the value itself, so if we want to understand the network value, we need to start from the network without token. For example, the Uniswap, before the token was introduced, was a value network. It can be easily proved because if you launch a new pool, you're adding new possibilities to route trades. If you're adding new liquidity, you increase the liquidity of the system and attractiveness for traders, right? Or if you make a trade, you left some fees in the pool that theoretically involves new liquidity providers and makes Uniswap more attractive to traders in general. So it's a value network, and every agent that made at least one interaction is contributed to the value that is created by Uniswap. And all this is agents coordination that are defined by the rules of pool creation and trading, right? So, and we have raw or unstructured coordination value in Uniswap. So value is there already, but there is no token. Value is not structured into any kind of asset. And at the same time, Uniswap has a system goals and issues. Any kind of system has a goal, right? Systems are built to achieve some goals. And they have some problems that should be solved to achieve this goal finally. So how the system works. So mechanism design or policies that apply to a token are mainly focused on solving these issues and helping the system to achieve the goal. For example, Uniswap wants to establish decentralized governance of the protocol, so they attributed tokens with one token, one vote, decision making regarding anything, right? Of course, the practical outcome can be different than really decentralized governance because of some whale domination, but discussing the theory. So the original value was based on the governance function, right? So after that, origins of value can be combined into the value capture mechanisms if there are more than one of them, or one original value can also value capture mechanism with one original value. After that, we have a value capturing implementation patterns. For example, you could know that Uniswap used the governance built by Compound. So they took the value capturing implementation pattern and forked it and applied to the protocol. So this is how the open source works, right? And the composability works. And the combination of these value capturing implementation patterns is a particular token model. Because, for example, with Uniswap, one day we'll add something else. It will be a combination of value capturing implementation pattern from Compound, which is governance part, and maybe, I don't know, some fee distribution that people are talking about, but it's not implemented yet, right? Because I think of the legal reasons or something else. So it will be a combination of this value capturing implementation pattern. So the Uniswap token is a good example of that. So we have 8 orders of value, 6 are positive, 2 are negative. So first, when we discuss orders of value, we try to understand where value comes from, how it's captured by an asset, right? So the first, most basic one is the value transfer. So the value of asset is gained by being involved in settlements, like fiat currency or Bitcoin, as a pure value transfer, original value, and the store value function is also the consequence of value transfer. Because if you store the Bitcoin, you hold it for 10 years, and you want to realize this value, you need to transfer it, right? And the value of Bitcoin will depend on the amount of users in the network who want to accept Bitcoin for exchange it for money or for some goods. So anyway, it's based on the value transfer. So the second one is the future cash flow. So it's quite easy. It's like a traditional stocks, etc. When you can get some cash flow based on the token ownership. But anyway, they can some conditions, for example, to run a node or do something. So cash flow, purely cash flow, is not so frequent because of the legal reasons, obviously. The third is the governance, when the value is derived from the option to influence the governance. So just imagine that there is a protocol which has $1 billion in the DAO, and it can distribute to any wallet based on the governance decision. It's obvious that the tokens of the protocols that have governance power in this particular example are quite valuable, because the $1 billion of cash can be distributed to some wallet. So fourth is the access of pure provision to some resource without component in the other one. That means that, for example, if there is, for example, a Telegram chat, you can access it with only one token. You can access this chat, but you cannot make some logic, you cannot get some cash flow, you cannot transfer this token. So you don't have any other utilities, but you just have an access. And your value that you will gain from it depends on your actions. If you, for example, use some information from the chat, some connectors, you can get more value. If you will never read this chat, you will get zero value, right? So the access is something that provides access to some resource, but not compounded in any other way. So the representation is when the value is gained by the representation of other assets. For example, the LP tokens in IMM, so representation of assets in the IMM, or USDC is a representation of US dollar in Circle, bank accounts, so like something like that. So hedonic value is mainly the value driver based on the community context and social agreements. For example, we all think that some CryptoPunks NFT are valuable and some other NFT collections are not valuable, right? So it's our social agreement or the context and scarcity, right? So nothing else. In some other situation, maybe nobody will think about the CryptoPunks at all because it's not perfect. Or for example, if I go receive Bitcoin from the Satoshi wallet, from the wallet from the first days of mining of Bitcoin, I think this Bitcoin will be much more valuable, this output, than Bitcoin from Binance, right? So because I have a hedonic value because Satoshi is something respectful for me, and I think for the majority of the people who at least know something in crypto. So this is how hedonic value can be attributed. Yeah. So and two orders of value are negative ones. It means that they possess some risk or some cost. So it means that it's something you spend or risk if you use a token. For example, it can be lockup periods or session possibility. We have like two subsections here. So lockup periods, for example, you lock your tokens in Curve for 4 years. It means that you cannot move these tokens for 4 years, and there is no guarantee the protocol will exist in 4 years, right? It can be hacked, it can be abandoned, anything can happen in crypto in 4 years, right? So, or for example, if you run a node, it can be slashed based on different, network conditions, and some black swans event in your home, the power was off, or your cloud provider was banned to your account, or something else. So you have slashing risk. And 8 is conditional action. So it means that you can get some positive value only in case you're doing some conditional action. For example, you're running a node, you're getting some positive value. Or you're trading on Binance and pay fees in BNB, you're getting some discounts that you can account as your cash flow. But if you will never trade, you will never get any discounts, you will never get any cash flow, you will never unlock any value of BNB token, right? So it's a conditional action that you need to do to unlock the value. So this is dependent on different variables, so the token price, number of tokens, so you're sharing the supply, state of the blockchain. State of the blockchain mainly means the distribution across other token holders. For example, in governance, it's critically important how many tokens have other participants of the governance vote, right? Or for example, if we're talking about the consensus, depends on how many tokens have, for example, the possible attacker of the network or something like that. Because if somebody owns 51% of all tokens, I think the value of these tokens are much less than if all tokens are distributed uniformly and there is no single entity that really can, make anything like double spending, anything, any of the way to the network without permission of other users. So the key is the holding time. Of course, if you're running a node for 1 year in Ethereum, you possibly don't get more rewards than if you run a node for 5 minutes or for 1 day. So some orders will have dependence on the time. For example, the future cash flow, the longer you own the token that provides cash flow, the more cash flow you'll get, or the more time you're holding the governance tokens, the more governance you will attend, governance votings or polls you will attend, the more influence you can provide to the system. Or for example, for some representation assets, doesn't matter how long you hold them, because it's just representation. Or for value transfer, it also doesn't matter how long you hold them. The question is, what is price? Because the bigger is the price for the value transfer asset like Bitcoin, the more value you can get when you transfer it as a payment or as an exchange for fiat money. Of course, the shared supply significantly affect the value transfer value, because if you have a 50% of supply in some value transfer token, you cannot get this value out, right? Because there's no liquidity. And the question is the state of blockchain, because if, for example, all our the bitcoins are held by someone and nobody uses Bitcoin, you also wouldn't get some value. So it's more complicated question, but this is like a just dependence. What depends on what? And for each of them, there should be a particular mathematical formulas, and I'm working on it to develop it and provide more mathematics to the theory. So there are 10 widespread value capture mechanisms. That means that 90% of projects using something from this 10. There are much more of them, because the possible amount of combinations is 255. So the industry uses 10 value capture mechanisms. I mean, 90% of the projects. Of course, there are some projects that are using something else. But the number of possible combinations of all these sources of values is much bigger. So there are a lot of value capture mechanisms, token models that are not discovered yet by anyone. Of course, there can be some origins of value that contradict each other. So, for example, I will show a couple of examples. So, the particular number that can be developed and used as a real product, as a token for some protocol, is much less than this number, because some combinations are probably not possible from the economic and logical point of view. But anyway, so we are far away from fully understanding the economics, what I want to say here. So, this is the example of value capture mechanism composition for the powerful token and for lightweight token. These are two work tokens that could be represented by the work token mechanism. So what we have, for example, in Purple. Purple is a network of nodes that signs transactions, and if transaction is signed on time and correctly according to all the conditions, they receive all the gas costs from this transaction, like a compensation for the gas costs and some fee on top of that. What means that if you run keeper node in Ethereum, you execute all transactions on time, you receive all the gas compensations and execution fees, so you generate some Ethereum cash flow for your tokens. That's an economic process. But what you need to do then? First of all, you need to run a node, right? You need to run it correctly without any downtime, without any RPC desync and all these possible problems that will relate to not signing the transaction and to be slashed by other person. So it's your conditional action. And your risk of slashing is a risk exposure. So anyway, if you're doing everything correctly, you anyway have a risk exposure to be slashed because of some black swans, the gas spikes. Of course, you're trying to protect users from that, making some additional development, but anyway, you have risk exposure anytime. If you stake something, you have risk exposure. But what you get in return, you get a future cash flow. So this is a balance of risk, conditional actions, and future cash flow. This is a work token. The life period is the same, almost the same. You need to run a GPU mining farm with GPUs. You need to transcode video, so the network is built for the transcoding video. For transcoding video, you need to have GPUs that can technically do that. So you stake some tokens for your GPU node, or also you can get some delegations from other users, but in general it's not a big difference. So you stake tokens, you receive some some like elementary video clips for transcoding. If you do it all correctly, make some proofing and all the technical process correctly, you receive some payment in Ethereum for this video transcoding. But if you fail, you will be slashed. So it's the same. If you've done your work right and correct in an honest way, you receive your payment. If you make some fails, you will get slashed. So this is a very simple construction. So these are some very catchy implementation patterns, like examples of that. So for example, for the most simplest mechanism for the wire transfer, you have classic cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Litecoin, Monero, Cash, Ethereum, and proof of work era was also the value transfer because you cannot do anything with Ethereum on the base layer of the protocol. Of course, I'm not talking about DeFi. Besides pay the gas fees, right? You cannot stake it in the node. If you want to mine Ethereum, you need to run your mining farm. That doesn't require any Ethereum to be staked. Of course, you just need physical equipment and internet access and set up, the software. So, basic attention token is a payment token and a payment network. It's also the value transfer. Example: the Link, the Helium. Maybe you know this project.
Link can be
Yes, this Link 1.0. It's an old version of Link now. Link is upgraded. Yeah, it's like how economics changed. It's especially defined as Link 1.0. Like more than 1 year ago. It's an example. Of course, now Link has upgraded economics with the staking and all the kind of stuff. So work tokens, as I said, for powerful like that. Some decentralized VPN projects, decentralized CDN, some other projects. Filecoin, unfortunately, is much more complicated than work token, I can say. But yeah. So there is a consensus. A consensus is a special interaction of these three orders of value because there is no particular job owner. Because in work tokens, every time there is a job owner, particular client of a network, the network pays for the job mainly, the job, the special nature of the job. So the Ethereum network has only one type of a job, right? For example, if we're talking about the consensus to propose the block correctly according to the all the rules of the protocol, and consumer is unspecified because you can get value from Ethereum network never using Ethereum. For example, you can build analytic dashboards, sell this analytics, so you can never interact with Ethereum. I mean, from your wallet, you can never own Ethereum, and you still can get value from Ethereum. Building something on top of existing applications, like some data analytics, a lot of other stuff. So the pure dividends. The only example I know is Liquidity, which has only dividends, no governance. The Liquidity doesn't have any governance. So the backing is, of course, DAI, USDC, some liquid staking Ethereum tokens are backing. So because they're basically backed by Ethereum and real validators that are acting as in the consensus. So the discount tokens are mainly tokens of the exchanges. Now the BNB is much more complicated token. We will also see this in the next slides, but one of part of it is a discount token still. So also there's a meta pattern that has some representations. So the most practically used token of this kind is Connex right now. Actually, Oracle proposed the idea of meta governance a long time ago, but like the working product that is online and has some adoption. The best example is Connex for now. Yeah, so the hedonic way NFTs and also Unisocks. If you're OG in crypto, you know what Unisocks is. But they also back by other rest backed by stocks because you can redeem them for stocks. It's a fun example to demonstrate the concept. So Unisocks have hedonic value and have also backing by stocks. Unique asset and access NFTs. They are mainly for some communities and communities. Yeah, so if you will dig into some more practical example, more complicated example is a BNB. So we have four original value transfer because you can pay gas fees. It's the only way to pay gas fees, right? You need to pay to the validators of the network. It's a value transfer value to them for using the network. You have the future cash flow, which is coming in the validator, and at the same time, if you're using it as a discount token, it's two different types of cash flow for two different types of agent. You have risk exposure, talking about the possible slashing. Of course, the BNB network is quite centralized, and I don't know if it was slashing there, but theoretically it can happen. And 8 is the conditional action. You need to run a BNB node if you want to participate in the validator's work, and this node is quite heavy, or you need to trade on the exchange and get savings on this trading volume. So it's also conditional action. So there are four origins of value, but they're combined in three value capture mechanisms: value transfer, consensus, and discount. So we can separate three main value capture mechanisms and make a graph and see the future cash flow, conditional action form consensus and discounts, right? And for example, risk exposure is not in the discount token, but it's in the consensus. So this is how the token can be disassembled into the value capture mechanism into the original view or just a way, like a multiple example. So yeah, based on all of this, there was a built periodic table. It has much more mechanisms. Also on this resolution, you cannot see all of it, but I can provide some insights how it was built, what is the purpose, how you can contribute to enriching it and making some elements of your name if you want one day, if you will find something new, of course. So what you have here, so the number here at 1, 2, 3 means that it's a dominant original value. So the first period, like I'm a QSB education, so for me it's clear reference to the classic periodic table, right? So the first period is consists of value capturing mechanisms that are like where the main value driver is value transfer. Where the first original value is the dominant one, it's the main one, and it's all based on it. The second is where the dominant original value inside the mechanism is future cash flow. Of course, we have a lot of such mechanisms. The third is where the governance is the main dominant value driver. Fourth is access. Fifth is representation. And sixth is hedonic value. 7 and 8 we don't have because they are negative origins of value. They're not value drivers, right? They're value consumers, according to this concept. So I will provide some examples that you probably may know. So this is the value transfer, the most simple. So this is the meme tokens because you have value transfer, the one side, and then you have a hedonic value on the other side. Of course, a lot of meme tokens they don't have real meme value. It's just a speculation and pump and some market manipulation possibly. But anyway, from theoretical point of view, the proper meme coin has a value transfer and hedonic value. Some people even think that Bitcoin is a meme token. I mean, it's a joke. Because it has hedonic value that you own Bitcoin from 2011 or 2012, and this is also have some hedonic value for you, and you can prove your experience in the community or something like that. So there is a whole paper on like partial fungibility of fungible assets. It's very interesting how, because they can be Bitcoins from the black market, right? Nobody wants to get because of the legal reasons, or they're Bitcoins from the miners, which are without history of transactions, or they're Bitcoins from Satoshi, or they're Bitcoins from some, I don't know, Helfini or somebody else that is really respected. So, okay, the second, here we have dividends, discount tokens, safety model. Some of these mechanisms are named in honor of the first protocol that proposed the mechanism, and the other proposed the safety model where you can get future cash flow and get a risk exposure, but not have any conditional action at the same time. So it's only 2 and 7. You cannot see this because the resolution of the screen is not so good. But anyway, so because the work token has future cash flow, risk exposure, and conditional action, and safety model doesn't have that. So the consensus token, the work token, this is optimized feedback governance. So yeah, and I forgot to say that these rows are also important because the first row of each period contains only one original value. Second contains all mechanisms that have 2 of them. Third contains all the 3. Fourth contains all the 4, and of course we have only one mechanism with 4 original value inside one mechanism. It's V token that combines future cash flow, governance, risk exposure, and conditional action. If you're interested in V economics, because it's a very well-known concept, I can dig into it a little bit later, how it is composed. So from my point of view, the pure governance doesn't exist because if you have a governance token, to get some value from it, you need to participate in votings, and this is conditional action, so you need to vote, at least making the snapshot, at least you need to delegate, and somebody will make this conditional action for you, but it is conditional action. You cannot just own token and do nothing and get some value from governance token. So this is why it doesn't exist. The governance, generalized governance is a 3 and 8, so governance and conditional action because you need to vote. And also, for example, the governance and value transfer cannot coexist because for the governance tokens, the main value is to hold them for a long time, facilitate votings, influence the votings, right? And if the value is gained from the transfers, it means that you need to transfer them as soon as possible. So it's, yeah.
If the governance token, the ecosystem doesn't making any proposal, they're making anything. So the governance token can become the future token, future value token in general?
If there is a protocol and there is no governance proposal, no real governance, it means that this token has an original value, the governance original value, but it is like 0 because there is no possibility to influence on the volumes. And this also is applied to the amount of resources in the protocol. The protocol has 0 treasury, 0, zero community, 0 like, TVL, 0 users. What you will influence in the volumes? You will influence nothing. So it's worthless. Theoretically you have original value, but its real value is 0 because it depends on the size of the TVL, user base, DAO treasury, influence on the DeFi. Because for example, the MakerDAO influence on DeFi is huge because the interest rate of MakerDAO affects the whole interest rates on all the lending protocols. Or DAI savings rate is the main competitor for the liquidity in the DAI at the time, right? And the possible governance proposal for DAI savings rate can be really significant for some whales because it affects the big, flows of TVL and possible if they will raise the DAI savings rate for the healthiness of the protocol for the stabilization. A lot of users, for example, can go out of well, compound because the interest rate is higher, and they will, TVL will go down, and it's really influence, guys. This is what I want to say. So there is some access based, like pure access with governance, some cooperatives where you have an access, you need to make some work for the cooperative, and you can get some future cash flow as cooperative works. For the 5, it's representation, each position, and what is the real term? So, I can see. Possibly, yeah, so if we will return to LP, it's an actively traded portfolio. So if you have IMM pair, it's actively traded portfolio. But if, for example, you have some kind of an index without any IMM that rebalance your assets, it's also actively traded portfolio. So if you have a token that represents some other assets that are making some operations, even just staking and receiving staking yield, for example, you have a basket of tokens, for example, sushi, some other tokens that you can stake somewhere and get some yield, it's also an actively traded portfolio, right? Because you get some staking yield, it grows. So for the area, you need to see this because I don't remember. So the hedonic value with dividends. Some, for example, some NFT collections, they have an option to distribute royalties to NFT holders. You can claim that. Some hedonic governance, where you can also have governance with the hedonic value. So NFT collection, where you can vote. Like, as I remember, penguins, maybe not Spudgy penguins, they vote. They don't want to make an acquisition with some company, and they abstracted royalties, make some wrapper to get out of the royalties to correct this acquisition, to make all the trading of NFTs without royalties, because they don't want to be acquired as a community. So this was, and this is real world assets, as I remember, because real world assets is a future cash flow, and it's backing by another asset, because any kind of real world asset that you issue on the blockchain is backed by a real asset. It can be shares, securities, like this project that offers the treasuries from the US government, or some real estate tokenization. You have some cash flow because real world assets have no sense without cash flow. The main idea is to bring cash flow from real world assets to DeFi, and at the same time you need to make some conditional action to ensure this bond between a real asset and the DeFi and extra system. So it's, I remember what it is. A real world asset is 2, 5, and 8. This is real world asset. Yeah. And the last one is the streaming rights. It's also 2, 5, and 8. No, 2, 5, and 6. 2 is the future cash flow, because from any kind of streaming rights, if you own a share of some song, for example, you own it for getting some part of cash flow from Spotify. I just saw such a project and I did this mechanism because I saw it in real production. It's mainnet. They have some legal agreement between Spotify and Stripe's platform that Spotify will, the company will take some profits from Spotify, convert them to DAI, if I'm not wrong, and send them to some contract that you can claim if you own some share of the song, something like that. Yeah, interesting. So you have cash flow, you have backing by the asset, because your part of the stock is backed by a real song that exists in digital form, and you have some hedonic value because if you own some unique song of some Dr. Dre or some big ass artist, probably you are from the community, you're a fan, and you have some hedonic value too. So this is a stream graph. So these are all mechanisms that I can find on the market. If there will be something else, I will add. If you will find something else, you also can DM me and you can add it. So yeah, that's it. So I want to say big thanks to the organizations that make this possible. So the Token community that helped me a lot to move in this direction, and Protocol that they funded this research, provide all the resources for it, and it's a very good example of a token that is presented. Thank you all. In the original paper, we have much more examples. So,
can you share the deck, for instance?
of course, yeah. Also, I want to make a little addition about the demand side and supply side economics because people mix it up all the time. So the rewards, how tokens were sold, then everything about the token distribution is a supply side. It's not distribution is not about that. The demand side is why anyone want to own this token, why anyone want to buy, why anyone want to use it. And the supply is when someone got this token. This is two different parts of the token engineering in general, and we focus on demand side. And people say our token is used for the rewards as a function. It's distribution rule, it's not a function. It's supply side, not demand side. So if you have some questions, maybe or something. I will share the deck, and there is also a paper, so it will be released in Journal of British Blockchain Association, so it's already approved for the publication. It's the first scientific journal, peer-reviewed academic journal in the world related to blockchain, launched in UK, and the guy who launched it even got a cert title. So it's quite a good one.
I have a question. In general, what are the healthy similarities that you see between tokenomics that are applied so far in space? Like, from a very scientific point of view, like which tokens do you count as healthy, and like did you do any kind of measurement?
Yeah, so I think this question is related to how this theory can apply from a beautiful slide to something practically useful. So yeah, so what we can do, we can take any kind of token. For example, so I think the good example of a token that you can take is, for example, Convex. It has, of course, not only meta governance. Yeah, also any patterns can be combined with the meta mechanisms. For example, if you have a token that owns the governance right of the basket, it's a meta governance, right? Convex, locked Convex token owns voting rights of all V series, of all V frags, of V prism, of something else there. So there are several tokens that voting power is delegated to VL CVX token holders. But besides this, VL CVX token holders receive also the cash flow, right? The 10% of all mined curve, frags, prisma, and all these tokens that they integrated into the protocol. So this governance power can be sold on the bribe market. The main idea of this meta governance is bribes, right? So the bribes is a monetary representation of governance value. How much somebody wants to pay in real money, I mean, stable coins or Ethereum or some tokens that are tradable on the market for some governance outcome. So it's a governance, monetary reflection of governance. So locked Convex token has two main value drivers. It's a meta governance because you can sell your governance rights for bribes, or you can vote if you're a big whale and influence something. But yeah, these bribes makes the work of token engineering much more easier to make some real calculation because you have some monetary value of it. And second is this cash flow from this protocol fee that is distributed to both of Convex holders. So what we can do, we can decompose it to the origins of value and the value check mechanisms. We can get all the on-chain data. We can plug it, build a simple model to process this data, like June Analytics we can use for that, and see how these different value capturing mechanisms, origins of value contribute to the real token value. For example, there was a period where the governance bribes, the governance value was quite high when the Convex was valued more than $5 billion. But the bull market ended, there is no bribes, nobody want to pay for the, nobody want to pay, or someone want to pay but little amount for this governance value, and the protocol fees can be more substantial in the in the whole pile of income that token holder can get. So we can make a healthy attestations of tokens, see what was in past, what origins of value contributed to the overall token value in past. If it's possible to measure it in some money form like bribes and cash flow, it's very easy, and see how this token evolutes over time to making some decisions. So this is the first, most basic option to implement this theory. And I think the protocols with cash flows, of course, are more healthy than other ones because people are very, philosophically and historically tied to cash flows. People understand how securities works, so okay, it has cash flow and it's not profit. Probably based on this.
Apart before if someone being inside the tokenomics of the protocol, And how we make sure that the price should be linear, it should be the linear or it should be exponential. So maintain those, which are the strategy basically in economics which to deploy like that.
You mean the token distribution strategy?
No, like maintain the price or maintain the valuation of that particular part of the tokens. Let's say we have the tokens and there can be mechanism the people are distributing a fee on that particular movement, the price going up or moving down, like say, sharing the rewards or something like that, or the price going down when people do the airdrops. And there are some events like buyback things or the events like burning the tokens. So how the correlated events are tightly coupled with the economics. So like and how we can use that correlated events along with the value proposition to capture the value of a particular price or enhance the price basically.
Okay, so if you're talking about buyback, it's just an implementation for the future cash flow. If you buy some tokens and burn them, for example, each user has more tokens in the supply, right? If the supply is limited, for example, and it's like an indirect dividends, like make it out. So it's just a different implementation of the future cash flow, which is covered by the theory. So the influence of airdrops and token distribution. So some projects can make an airdrops and go to zero because everybody is not believing in this project. They will just want to sell it out and forget about it. In some projects, they make token distributions to make a big base of holders, right? Quite a strong one. For example, on Truman Optimism, they made airdrops quite substantial ones, and they're not going to zero, right? So maybe it's subject for like separate research, and it's like token distribution efficiencies of how many tokens and money you spend for the incentivizing the users, or look at the airdrops and how many users you get, what is the price for one user, etc. So it's not covered by this theory, but there are a lot of research on Twitter because it's quite simple. You can just get on-chain metrics, how many you dropped, how many new wallets, how many new transactions you got in the network, how many fees the network collected. So yeah, so it's not covered by this theory at all. It's a supply-side economics.
Burning the token which Ethereum do, like burning the transaction fees, do you think it is an effective way to sustain the Ethereum price? They are like proposing.
I think the only way to make sustainable price for a token is providing the real utilities to it, and somebody should need to use it really, and want to use it, and want to hold it, want to use it in active way in the protocol. This is the only way. If you make some IMM pair, people can sell in the same pair. So I think the all market mechanisms are much worse than doing a good token model in the first place, and do a good business model in the first place for the protocol in general. This is what I'm talking about in this presentation. This is my aim in the presentation.
Yeah, because why I'm looking like what are these events like in general? So is it fair to decide to predict the price of the token when we predicting the optimized price to like depend on the economics of any tokens on behalf of the
The bonding curve is just a market, man. Bonding curve is a market for a token. So I don't know how to comment. It's a market, and how people behave on the market depends on do they need this token or they don't need this token.
How does supply side economics play a role in this framework?
You can see how many tokens you spend for the distributions of airdrops, incentives, CPT mining, grants, something else, and see how did it provide some boost in metrics of demand side or not? Did more users stake tokens into the into the nodes? Did you acquire more node runners if nodes, or did you get some more users in the DeFi protocol, more TVA, more fees collected? So you can make it just a comparison. You paid, so it's like very simple. You pay this amount of tokens, what amount of value generated by users in the network you got. If you can account them simply as a fees, as a number of active wallets, as a number of TVA. Just make because you can bond your expenses on on the supply side and your achievements on the demand side from fundamental metrics of number of holders, number of users, TVA, fees, users paid, protocols integrated, supply new users. So it depends on the nature of the product. For example, for power pools, how many keeper nodes we have, how many protocols using our automation power pool we have, so how many users of automation, how many execution transactions and fees we collect. So.
I may have missed this, but I noticed that you didn't mention that liquidity is after the price.
I'm not talking about the price period. I'm talking about
the value. Yeah, so
liquidity is important for any kind of asset, but your asset can be liquid and still provide a lot of value for the owner.
right. So
For
is there-
example, you have a protocol with ETH economics, you lock your tokens in for 4 years. You don't need any kind of liquidity because you can attack it for 4 years and you're receiving substantial amount of fees, you're receiving governance rights, you can vote, you can get some bribes. So is it for you important the liquidity now? For you it will be important maybe the valuation at the end when you can lock, but while you can't unlock, liquidity doesn't matter for you in general, if you're talking about this position period. So there are some protocols, like if you will see the Nexus Mutual, for example, has a lot of utility, but its main asset isn't tradable at all, and the wrapped asset has only a small share of the total market cap and is not traded so much.
So
And
this
at the same
model-
time, Nexus Mutual is quite a used platform.
Okay. So in this model, that's an exogenous factor.
Yes, and for so liquidity is of course important for any kind of asset, but it is outside of the core economic functions.
I'm talking about insurance protocol which has a steady liquidity, or it can be the movable liquidity. If liquidity is means earning some reward, then it can be helpful, right? It can be a part of economics to distribute the things.
Yeah, but the liquidity acquisition for the token is a part of the supply side mainly. Because if you use the token for liquidity, you don't use it for the main purpose, right? So if you supply your tokens into IMF, you are either like foundation or DAO or like holds these tokens for some reason you want to increase liquidity, or you're a big fan and believer, or you want to farm some rewards. Because if you have two options, you can supply to liquidity pool, you can supply it for to ETH economics or to stake in the node, so use the token in the productive way, in a way that is designed by the protocol in the first place. So why you need to provide liquidity? This is the big problems of IMMs, because you always have a permanent loss. You can get maybe some positive returns on the use of D3 with a proper strategy, and at the same time you cannot use the token for your main function. So that's
Well, thanks so much, man.
Thank you.